read this article the other day about the Australian superannuation system, and it seemed to have several relationships that were rather insightful. So I thought I'd go ahead and put together a model about it. It seems as though, with a realization that their population is aging, which is the situation in numerous countries these days, that actually ends up putting a strain on government-funded retirement services. I mean, the more aged people there are, the more retirement services will be desired by that group of people, which ends up putting a strain on government funds. The typical response to this is to go ahead and increase the tax rate, which increases taxes, which then increases government funds to go ahead and have enough to deal with the retirement services and other things as the situation happens. Though what and typically that's the way that we think about problems and situations, in a rather one-dimensional fashion, so that we have a problem and we think about it until we think we have an approach to dealing with it, and then we go ahead and affect that approach, and it usually turns around to bite us in the butt later. Though in this particular instance, the aging population also diminishes the workforce, which will diminish taxes, which will diminish government funds, requiring an additional increase in the tax rate, so that this balancing loop actually has two influences governing it based on the aging population, and the situation is simply going to get worse. So what they did was they implemented a mandatory superannuation system where people were required to save for retirement with pre-tax savings, and therefore they would have retirement savings that they could use to offset the government-funded retirement services. And it sort of sounds good in the short term, though what are the implications in the longer term? Well, the longer term is, do you actually believe that because of all of the other demands on government, they're not going to run out of money for other reasons and increase the tax rate, which actually decreases the retirement savings that people have at the time that they need them? Though, the article talked about, if you look at the situation from the perspective of modern monetary theory, there's no way that a nation which issues its own currency can ever run out of money. Though there's a different problem that arises from these relationships, and that is that given this retirement savings, with the workforce declining, results in a reduction of goods and services produced, and when the demand exceeds the supply, you end up with inflation, so that by actually creating additional funds to deal with this government retirement funded services situation, you end up with more money available than there is a workforce to produce goods and services, and you end up with inflation, which ends up making the retirement savings worth less because they will buy less. The point being that the government needs to realize this additional relationship and needs to invest in the development of future production of goods and services, in addition to simply mandating that people save for retirement. And, as Sengi said in The Fifth Discipline, seldom can we ever do just one thing, but we have a tendency to look at things in a rather myopic fashion and don't realize that every action that we take has multiple influences. Every situation has multiple influences on other things and multiple things that influence it. And it's appropriate to seek out and understand those relationships. The additional concern is that, because everything is connected, when most people end up drawing relationship diagrams, it ends up becoming a convoluted mess because they actually include things that aren't actually relevant to the situation at hand, that have a marginal influence on what's going on. So it's sort of an ongoing trade-off of what should I include and what can I leave out. But I continue to find that developing relationship models gives me a far better understanding of the interactions, the relationships, and the implications of those relationships. It's a lot like playing chess, I think. So hope you found this interesting, and I'll see you in another video soon. Bye.